And we are back. Welcome to my channel, Get Legit LLC. And as usual, this is not legal advice. It is my sunny Caribbean opinion on legal twists to topics in social media, reality TV, current events, and just life events in general. Please, please, please do support my channel because we're trying to grow. Again, my disclaimer, and whatever copyrighted materials that I'm using it under the Fair Use Act. However, if you feel as though we've gone beyond the fair use, please contact us so we could promptly take down that particular video and make the necessary amendments. Thank you again for my new subscribers, and those of you who are back on my channel, welcome. Please like, comment, share, and do subscribe to my channel. I believe right now I have like 263. Yes, I'm trying to get to that 1,000 mark. So please support my channel. If you like my content, please like so we could be there up in those algorithms. So for most of you who are familiar with the UK system, whenever we see William and Kate, Harry and Meghan meeting and greeting the public, they call it the walkabout. And so for this video, since I'm be talking about the coronation of Charles III, I want to do a walkabout back in history to look back on the reigns of all the Charleses. We had Charles I, Charles II, and now we have a Charles III. So let's kind of like look on the previous Charles to see and kind of get a premonition, if any, of what the reign will be for this new monarch, Charles III. So let's start with looking at it from as it relates to previous Charles. So the first, of course, will be Charles I. So let's look at Charles I. Oh, my video is my slides. Okay. Why is it going backward? Anyway, this is Charles I. His reign was from 1625 to 1649. My apologies if you hear a dog barking in the background. It's a dog. He's on the veranda and he's unruly at times. My apologies. I'll try my best to edit out as much as possible, but if I can't edit as much out, then yeah. Anyway, so Charles I, his reign was deep. He was a deeply religious king. He had controversies and disputes that dogged his reign. He spent a lot of money on the arts. He was a great supporter of the arts. He broke an engagement and married a Roman Catholic, Henrietta Maria of France. He inherited disagreements with Parliament, and by inheriting, he inherited it from his father, who was the king too. And he had failed expeditions to France, and there was tension between king and the Parliament centered around finances. He dismissed the Parliament in March 2029. There was a riot in Scotland after the king imposed a high church liturgy. There was the Irish uprising. He had to deal with the Battle of Edgehill. And in 1649, King Charles placed himself in the hands of the Scottish army. And on 20th of January, 1649, King Charles was charged with high treason. Yes. And on the 27th of January, 1649, King Charles was sentenced to death. So I know we don't normally see this happening with the royal family, the monarchy. However, it did happen. And his death, his beheading, would have been the second to happen to a monarch. And so 30th of January, 1649, King Charles was beheaded. So Charles first awoke from dawn in St. James's Palace on the day of his execution. He opened the curtains and announced he had great work to do this day. It was freezing outside and he asked for an extra shirt. The season is so cold, he said, it would, open quotes, make me shake, which some observers will imagine proceeds from fear. I would have no such impression. I fear not that. So as from this statement, you could see Charles I's welcome his fate. But he didn't want the public to think or believe that he was scared. So in English law, treason had always been understood to be an action against the king, not by the king. The only precedent for the execution of a monarch was that of Charles's grandmother, Mary, Queen of Scots. In 1587, Law, History, and Fact had been twisted to argue that a Scottish monarch owed the English monarch a duty of obedience. It had allowed Mary to be found guilty of treason against her Tudor cousin Elizabeth I. And when we say Elizabeth I, we're talking about Queen Elizabeth, who was the daughter of Henry VIII. For those of you who are not familiar with history, Henry VIII was married to Catherine of Aragon, a Spain queen. She was a Roman Catholic. They married. But before that, our Catherine was married to Henry's brother. The brother died, and so Henry used the Bible to prove that he could marry this woman who was his brother's widow. So he married her, and then he fell in love with Anne Boleyn. And when he wanted a divorce from the church, and so it went through a whole series of events and saw a lot of beheading. And if you want to follow it, you could look at the play A Man for All Season. And so in that play, it speaks about all the intrigue that happened behind the scenes when it comes to the beheading. He would eventually behead Anne Boleyn. However, they had a child together, and that child was a girl. And so at the time, he wanted a son to rule. That was the way things go that time in that era. And so Queen Elizabeth became queen after her brother that Henry VIII had with another woman passed away. And so her reign, a lot of people count her reign as the Reformation, the age where there was a lot of growth and prosperity. And apparently, according to historical documents, she was an excellent queen, if I might say so myself. But yeah, so Queen Elizabeth I, daughter of Henry VIII, had her cousin Mary Tudor. She was a Scots, had her beheaded. So now law, history, and fact were being twisted again to argue that a king could commit treason against his people. It smacked of victorious justice. The Scots, whose king he also was, had sent an official delegation to plead for his life. So had the French, for his wife Henrietta Maria was in Paris, and Louis XIV was her nephew. The Dutch had done so too, because Mary, Princess of Orange, was Charles's eldest daughter. But their plans failed. Their plans were to no avail. Charles I said, "I go from a corruptible to an incorruptible crown where no disturbance can be." Basically, he's talking about being a martyr for the cause. And so, 9th February 1649, he was buried at Windsor and not at Westminster's Abbey. And to many, Charles was seen as a martyr for his people. And to this day, wreaths of remembrance are laid by his supporters on the anniversary of his death at his statue, which faces down the White House parliamentary roof known as the Integrum. Charles's son, Charles II, was proclaimed king in 1660. Now note that gap. He died 1649, but his son never became king immediately. His son became king in 1660. So what happened? So it says here, in France, Louis XIV, mother, the regent Anne of Austria, described Charles's fate as, open quotes, a blow which ought to make all kings tremble. It didn't, perhaps, because in 1660, Charles's son, Charles II, was restored to the crown. And there I put my source. So if those of you who want to research more on this topic, to learn more, you're free to do so. So now comes Charles II, his reign. So after the death of Oliver Cromwell, his son Charles became the Lord Protector. So after Charles I was killed, that gap between 1649 and 1660 is because Oliver Cromwell acted as Lord Protector, and then his son Richard became Lord Protector after he died. However, Richard lacked the leadership qualities of his father, and he quickly resigned. It was decided that Charles's son should return to his rightful role and become king. He would rule closely with Parliament and return to popular acclaim. But what happened during Charles II's second reign? Let's get into it. The young king's heart was soon taken, that should be Soon, not son, was soon taken by the married beauty, Barbara Villiers, who Charles would show off publicly. So yeah, Charles II's reign came about now, and right away he fell in love with a married woman, which means he had a side chick, a married side chick, a married mistress, not just a mistress, but he had a married mistress. So Villiers came to symbolize the excess and promiscuity of the Restoration Court. His brothers, I believe this is his brother James, his brother's secret marriage to a commoner also added an air of scandal to the crown. So, despite having fathered a child by his mistress, Charles was keen on Mary. Catherine of Braganza, the daughter of King John IV of Portugal, was chosen. Dowry was generous indeed. He got 2 million crowns and the cities of Bombay and Tangiers thrown in for good measure. I guess that king really wanted his daughter to be wedded off to a king, and a king of England, no doubt. So just as Charles negotiated the conflicts of marriage and mistresses, the nation was an irreconcilable tangle of religious conflicts. Puritanical Protestants still had great sway in England, and even more so in Scotland. The king was personally close to many Catholics and their sympathizers. Somewhere in the middle lay the established Church of England, itself rocked by similar tensions. Charles had no legitimate children. There was a widespread fear that his Roman Catholic brother James would inherit the throne. Charles's Royal Society was at the forefront of great scientific advances in 1660. So now I'm going to get into some of the good things that Charles did, apart from just having a mistress and the promiscuity and his brother's scandal and marrying a commoner. So some of the things that befell his reign. The Great Plague of London came a mere 5 years into his rule, followed by the Great Fire of London the following year, and should surely have seen off the king but with guile. Charles survived these events. As well as this, the English lost the Second Anglo-Dutch War in 1667. So during his reign, he had the Great Plague of London, he had the Great Fire of London, and these things should have been to his ruin. However, they didn't. He was able to survive that. And he also had to survive and did survive the Second Anglo-Dutch War of 1667. Just as the city seemed to spring anew from the ashes of the Great Fire of London, science and commerce offered hope of a better future. The misery of the recent past was perhaps enough to discourage the discontent from rebellion. Charles sued for peace abroad with the Dutch and signed a treaty of Breda. Soon after, a formal alliance with Holland and Sweden was created. Peace seemed to unleash the king's loins, and now he would be linked with a long list of women, presumably overlapping countesses, singers, and famously, the orange seller turned actress Nell Gwynn graced the royal bed. Barbara was pensioned off. Thanks to Charles II's French mistress, Louise de Carola, I believe that's how I'm pronouncing the word, I'm not too sure of that. But moving along, rumors started to circulate at court that the French astronomer Sieur de Saint-Péray had devised a means of determining longitude at sea by using observations of the moon's position in relation to the background stars. On March 4th, 1675, the king signed a royal warrant appointing John Flamsteed as astronomical observer so as to find the so much desired longitude of places from perfecting the art of navigation. It was the founding of Britain's first state-funded scientific research institution. Good for you, Charles. Charles II reign signed a secret treaty with King Louis XIV of France, in which England offered aid in war against the Dutch, in return for the French stalling their naval expansion. Sensationally, he also offered to declare himself a Catholic in return for money. Although the funds began to flow, freeing Charles of some of the influence of Parliament, the conversion never seemed to happen, at least not publicly. His brother James was forced to resign as Lord Admiral despite his noted service when he refused to renounce his own newfound Catholicism. At once, this explosive secret about the heir to the throne became public news. Death of Charles II. So Charles II was caught between support for his brother and a historical reaction to the Popish plotting. Parliament tried to cut James out of the succession, and Charles looked to marry off James' daughter to Protestant Prince William of Orange in Holland. In 1681, with Parliament poised to declare itself in charge of the royal succession, the king dissolved it to sit no more in his reign. At the very edge of the precipice, somehow Charles clung on. His final years were spent settling scores and concentration power. On his deathbed, he finally converted to Catholicism, and on 6 February 1685, he passed away peacefully. His brother James fared less well and ruled for only 3 years before fleeing the country to make way for William of Orange. So yeah, we've seen the first Charles, the second Charles, and now let's move to the third Charles. So, King Charles III, the dawning of a new monarch. Today's crowning, that was Saturday's crowning of King Charles III, is a significant event. Just like every ruler since Henry VIII, the newly crowned king will carry the title Defender of the Faith and act as a supreme governor of the Church of England. A practical demonstration of this King Charles III is that he will be the first monarch to have prayed aloud at the coronation. A vital aspect of his work will be his role as the patron of a wide and diverse group of Christian charities. Christian charities, some of those charities. Caring for God's Acre. That is a charity that promotes the conversion of burial grounds, the conservation of burial grounds across the UK. The Prayer Book Society. They promote the use of prayer book in all churches across the country and also support the clergy who use it regularly in the mission work of the church. Another Christian charity is the Church's Conservation Trust, which is a national trust whose work involves rescuing historic English churches that are at risk. They have saved over 350 buildings, which now attract almost 2 million visitors a year. Good. And another Christian charity is Partner with Charities Support by King Charles III, raising awareness to the work of many Christian charities in the UK. So other charities that King Charles is involved with. He is the president of 19 charities, and together with the Queen Camilla, they are now they are patron of 500 organizations. In addition to independent charities, Charles established a number of separate charitable initiatives, which include the Prince's Trust, which helped over 875,000 disadvantaged young people into employment or business, the Prince's Accounting for Sustainability Project, the Prince's Countryside Fund, which works to improve quality of life for rural communities, the Mosaic, which is a Muslim youth mentoring campaign, the Prince's Wool Project, which works to support the UK wool industry, and START, which helps to promote sustainable living, as well as the Cambran Mountain Initiative, which works to support the economy. This is a picture of some scenes from the coronation. And as you can see, in the middle, you have the UK flag, and there you see a red, white, and blue there with the emblem in the middle. Yeah, that's the flag of Belize, because yes, Belize is part of the Commonwealth. So, but even though Saturday was a nice event, it was good to watch. I did watch a coronation. I enjoyed it. It wasn't all kumbaya. as we would say, because there were protests. One protest said, "Not my king," and then you had the Scots, they were singing. It was crazy, but not my king. Let's get into some of it. So protesters at coronation, 5 anti-monarchy activists and other protesters were arrested on the morning of the coronation of King Charles III. 6 people from the anti-royalist campaign groups Republic and 19 from the Just Stop Oil. Those people were protesting, and they were arrested by the Metropolitan Police in central London. And a study showed, because we want to think it's all kumbaya, but it's not. So there was a study done by Independent National Center for Social Research. 3,000 adults surveyed and this research was done in March. So you had 35% of the people said they didn't care very much about the coronation. Then you had 29 said that they didn't care at all. So general support, as of March 2023, the monarch was at an all-time record low. But the police put out a tweet. The London Metropolitan Police tweeted, and they said that day, the day of the coronation, they will deal robustly with anyone who intends on undermining this celebration. Let me read it word for word. Deal robustly with anyone intent on undermining this celebration. So, yeah. And those persons, they were charged with suspicion of breaching the peace, conspiracy to cause public nuisance, possessing articles to cause criminal damage. So you had thousands of Scottish, so this is what I'm reading from the report. You had thousands of Scottish supporters of the Scottish independence. They marched through the streets of Glasgow with some chanting, "You can shave your coronation, you can shove your coronation up your A." I guess you can figure what that A stands for. And then you had people from the Just Stop Oil demonstrating. And so they're saying that while everyone is focused on a billionaire in a shiny hat, the government is signing off on plans to destroy the lives of millions of ordinary people. So the Just Oil people, Just Stop Oil, that's their position. And then another protester, you have a doctor who was arrested as well. Another protester, Kush Naker, who is 33-year-old, he's a doctor of infectious disease from London. He said, "I never thought in my life that I would be terrified that the police might arrest me for protesting peacefully in the UK. But that is now the state of affairs we are in." So there you had it. A doctor, infectious disease doctor, protesting, this Just Stop Oil protesting, and they say people are celebrating a man in a shiny hat while the government is destroying the lives of millions of ordinary people. Then you had the Scottish. They were demonstrating, the Scottish were demonstrating that they can shove the coronation up there, whatever A. So it wasn't all peaceful that day, which perhaps you could look at the previous 2 Charles' reign and say, what will be the reign as it comes to King Charles III? But until then, until more happens, until we find out more, all we're going to say is God save the king. And we wish him well. He and his wife, we wish them well. What else can we do? What else can we say? We wish the king well and a healthy, long reign. And let's just wait and see what will be his fate. I already explained King Charles I. I already explained King Charles II. So now we have a third. For those of you who are interested in the events for the coronation, I believe today is Monday, May 8th. There is the big help out. It says it's the extra bank holiday. So it's a holiday in the UK. And King Charles is encouraging the British public to spend the day volunteering in local community. So those persons who are watching, you're in the UK, please go out and support in the local community. It's good. It keeps in line with his initiative. It keeps in line with his mantra as it relates to the different charities for which he is a patron and supports. For those of you who like this video, please, thank you. Please like, comment, share, and please do support my channel by subscribing. That's all I ask. That's all I ask. Just subscribe so I can build my numbers, so I can get to that 1,000 mark and monetize. But I do enjoy what I'm doing. I do enjoy bringing forward these information so people could learn and we could dialogue. Until next time, my next video, thank you and do have a wonderful day.